Daughter claims she only considers her in-laws on her husband's side as grandparents to her kids and wouldn't let me be involved because they're leaving this huge inheritance for her kids while I'm good for nothing because I'm still working at 61. Now she's freaking out because I'm giving away more money than she can ever imagine to all the grandchildren from the rest of the family, and she can do nothing about it. I, 61, male, run an electronics business that my father left me. It's moderately successful, but in the past few years, business has been better than usual. I didn't tell anybody about it. I wanted it to be a surprise. I haven't changed anything about my lifestyle either. I still live pretty modestly like I used to before. I'm not a cheapskate or something. I just like living like most middle-class people do. That's how I'm comfortable. That's how I was raised. I'm not one for showing off, which is quite opposite to my daughters-in-law. My wife and I have only one child, my 35-year-old daughter, but, unfortunately, she and I really don't get along well anymore. She got married a couple of years ago, and this boy and his family really changed her. They came from old money. They're pretty hoity-toity, and it's very clear that they don't like me. So I don't interact much with his family either because I know that I'm unwanted there. Unfortunately, this also means that my daughter doesn't visit with my grandkids that often because of the tension between our families. And even when she does, she's just constantly trying to get me to live the way her in-laws do. And that always leads to bickering and stuff because I'm happy with the way I am. Eventually, my wife has to intervene and diffuse the situation, but it always leaves a bitter taste. Last week, the fight that we had was a really bad one because she said a lot of untoward things. And usually, even my wife, who is neutral in most cases and doesn't like to get involved, had to tell our daughter that she was crossing a line. It started off with her, as usual, telling me to retire because I'm 61 and I'm still working. And it doesn't look good for the family because it looks like I can't retire because I can't afford to. So I told her very bluntly that I really don't care what it looks like to other people, especially when I don't care about those flimsy shallow people anyway. After all, it's my father's business, so I'm gonna run it for as long as I can, and I don't care if anybody has a problem with that. Then my daughter flared up and she told me that she couldn't tolerate this anymore, especially when her in-laws had always been so nice to her and had even told her that they were going to leave a massive inheritance for her kids. And then on the other hand, she had me sitting and insulting these people who only wanted the best for her and calling them shallow when I had no idea what they had done for her. Then she started taunting me that even if I wanted to, I actually couldn't afford to do the same for her and my grandkids. So now, since I had made it so clear that I didn't care about her opinions, she was going to make sure that she didn't allow me to be involved in her kids' lives. And the only people who would be considered grandparents would be her in-laws. She said a lot of things. She called me good for nothing, told me that she was ashamed of having me for a father and of how much she had to struggle while growing up. She had to work 2 jobs when she was in college just because my business was going through a rough patch back then, and that's why she couldn't do as well as she had expected academically, even though she had potential. She told me that she blames me for all her failures and now she was going to put an end to this because I was just an embarrassment to her. I literally had nothing to say to her. I couldn't even fight her because I was so upset, and I ended up crying. That's when my wife intervened and told our daughter to apologize, but she didn't even care. She just walked out without even looking back, and I was just thankful that my grandkids were not there to see and hear all of this because they're both still under 10, and I really wouldn't have liked for them to hear any of this. Anyway, after that happened, I was upset for a couple of days, but then I made up my mind that whatever I had been saving for her and my grandkids, I was going to give it out to my other relatives. After all, since she had her in-laws to take care of her, she probably wouldn't need the money that I had been putting aside. So I started contacting my other grandkids, basically grandkids of my siblings, because even though we are not strictly related, I still do love these children and I don't think it's a bad thing that I'm doing by any means. Not everybody has rich in-laws to cover them for the rest of their lives, so I figured that I might as well leave something to the part of my family who actually needed me and was not embarrassed of me. And my siblings and nieces and nephews and their partners have all been very grateful to me, thanking me over and over again, and I actually feel really good. But somehow, I guess somebody must have told her. My daughter found out and she called me up yesterday having a total meltdown on the phone. At first, she basically just confirmed whatever she already knew. And then when I told her that I had indeed been giving away a ton of money to the rest of the family, she started freaking out at me. She told me that it was crazy that I had had this kind of money and had never told her anything about it. So I told her what I had actually intended to do, that I had been keeping that money aside for the past couple of years so I could surprise her with it in a few years and let her know that I was leaving this for her and the children. But now, since I knew that she had her in-laws covering her, I figured that she probably didn't need it anymore. And then she started apologizing to me, saying that she went a bit over the line that day, but I was so upset by her behavior that I didn't even respond. I just hung up and then I blocked her. And since then, She's been calling my wife trying to get to talk to me and trying to apologize to me and stuff and even trying to guilt trip me, saying that at the end of the day, blood is blood and my biological grandkids will be very upset when they finally find out what has happened recently. But then I don't think I'm even going to be around, so that really doesn't make a difference to me. But my wife thinks that even if I don't give her the money, I should at least smooth things over with her right now. I don't feel the same way though, but my wife believes that I'm ruining our chances of being involved in our grandkids' lives by getting caught up in this ego war with my daughter, so I should just forgive her. I can understand where she's coming from, but I was really hurt by whatever my daughter had said. So I don't want to give up and I feel terrible about it because I feel like I'm being petty. Ida for giving away the inheritance that I had been planning to save for my daughter and my grandkids? Update 1. Thank you so much everybody for all the supportive comments. I have spoken to my wife and I told her that I'm going to be sticking to my decision. Whatever my daughter said the other day, I felt really insulted and humiliated, and I don't think that I'm doing anything wrong. It's not like she's going to be completely helpless if I give out this money. Like she said, she has her in-laws, and even apart from that, her husband makes good money and so does she. So I really don't understand why she needs my financial assistance on top of everything she already has, especially after the way she insulted me. It's very foolish of her to expect that I'm going to forgive her. As for the money, I had been saving about 20% of my income every month for the past few years ever since my business started really flourishing, but I hadn't really been paying attention to exactly how much I accumulated. I had just been keeping my money aside without thinking much, and a lot of it had to do with whatever my daughter has said about me not being able to support her back when she was in college. I did feel bad about it even though back then, I would send her whatever little money I possibly could. Unfortunately, because of a couple of bad investments and the general economic condition, my business had been facing a lot of losses back then. So, naturally, I couldn't help her out much since I was living paycheck to paycheck, and I also had to think about my employees. Some months, I would even end up paying people out of my own pockets because there was no way out of it, and I know that even my daughter suffered because of our financial condition. I'm aware of the fact that she went through a lot of trouble because she had to work 2 jobs to be able to afford her tuition. And even then, she had to take out a student loan eventually because we just couldn't keep up. It's not like I didn't feel bad, and she really made sure that I did. My daughter would remind me of my failures quite often and sometimes even publicly take jibes at me about this. So a huge part of the reason that I had been saving up money to leave for her and my grandkids was because of this, so that I could somehow make up for whatever had happened in the past. But now I really don't feel that it's necessary anymore since I feel like I've suffered enough and I've paid enough. Maybe not financially, but I have paid with my sanity and dignity. In the past couple of years, even though she started to become increasingly distant from us, after she started her now husband and got involved with his family, I tried my very best to keep in touch with her. I would try to apologize to her after every fight, make things up to her every time we fought about even small things, and just tried to be a part of her life and swallow my own pride all the time regardless of how she treated me, but I can't do that all my life. I'm getting up there in age, and sometimes I feel like children really don't understand what they're putting their parents through. I don't think my daughter does, and I don't think she cares either because if she did, she would have contacted me before things got out of hand. And she didn't though. She hurt me. And then she didn't even bother getting in touch with me until she realized that I was giving out crazy amounts of money to our other relatives. That was what it took for her to reach out to her own father and try to make amends with him. Had that not happened, I highly doubt that she would be trying to get to me or apologize to me, and that's what hurts the most. It's not like it's going to bring me any joy to cut her out of my life or knowing that I'm probably not going to see my grandkids in a really long time if it's up to her, but it has to be done. She can't constantly disrespect me, treat me and my wife like doormats, and then expect us to still be there for her. So I have told my wife that I can understand that she feels hurt, and so do I, but right now, it's more important for us to be taking a stand for ourselves. For the past couple of days, we fought over this a lot, but right now, we are at a place where she has decided to just give me the silent treatment. Deep down, I know that she understands why I'm doing this, and as much as she fights with me, she has also stopped responding to our daughter. So I know that somewhere, she is on my side, and I'm extremely grateful for her support. Whatever money I had been putting aside for the past couple of years, it had come to a huge amount. About 30% of that has already been given away to my other grandkids, and the rest, I intend on putting back into my business while also splitting it for my wife's and my personal use. I had said that I like living frugally, so does my wife. We're not very extravagant when it comes to our lifestyle, but I think it's about time that we loosen the purse strings a bit. Ever since we had that rough financial patch when our daughter was in college, both of us had become extremely cautious about money and saving for the future. But I guess somewhere along the line, we stopped having fun out of fear that we would end up spending all our money and then we would have to worry about our finances once again like we had to back then. Even though we had never been financially undisciplined, we just never wanted to see those days again. So I have to admit, both of us have been kind of paranoid about money. When I think back on it, apart from any money that we have spent for our daughter or our grandkids, like buying them a couple of expensive gifts once in a while, we have hardly had any significant expenses or purchases of our own. Now, though, I think it's about time that we had some fun, and for that purpose, I have even started planning a vacation to some exotic location in a couple of weeks. It's going to be a surprise for the missus, and I'm sure that right now, no matter how mad she is at me, she's eventually going to forgive me later on, especially after I tell her what I have in store for her. So I am really looking forward to that. Anyway, that's it for now. Thank you so much for reading and being so kind to me here. It really means a lot to me. Update 2. Hello. So it's been 2 weeks since my wife and I started ignoring our daughter. And in the past couple of days, she had also stopped trying to contact my wife. I believe that she was giving up, and I thought it was for the best because my wife and I have spoken at length about the situation right now. And I've been able to explain my side of things to her, and she understands. She also apologized to me for being upset with me, but I could understand her thing as well, so we worked it out, and things have been going fine. Because after the messages and phone calls stopped coming, my wife also started feeling less guilty. However, today, certain things happen, and neither of us knows how to feel about anything at this point. So since it was the weekend, both of us were at home and planning our vacation for next month. Then in the afternoon, the bell started ringing. And when we looked out, my daughter and our grandkids were standing outside. Naturally, you guys can understand why this was a very tricky situation because if it had been just my daughter, I wouldn't have any second thoughts and I would have just ignored her. But, unfortunately, she had the kids with her. And no matter how upset I am with my daughter, I won't be able to be indifferent to them ever. And I don't think that I want to either. I opened the door instantly, let the kids in, and they were actually very happy to see us because they hadn't seen us for a very long time. So both my wife and I almost teared up. But I had a bone to pick with my daughter, so I had my wife take the kids to the other room so that my daughter and I could speak to each other in person because I didn't want any drama to go down in front of the grandkids. Once they were in the other room, I confronted my daughter about what she was trying to do because I was pretty sure that she was using her children to speak to me because she knew that I was not going to be able to ignore them. But she told me that she was not doing anything of this sort. She just brought them over because they were missing us a lot and kept asking to see us. She told me that she's not the kind of mother who would use her kids for something like this. She's not that petty. And the fact that I even think of her like that, it was very disheartening because I'm supposed to be her father and as a parent, I should know what kind of a person she is. And for a couple of seconds, I felt really bad about what I had accused her of because at the end of the day, even she is a parent, and if I was in her place, I probably wouldn't like being accused of something like that either, especially if that's not really what I was trying to do. I was about to apologize to her, but then I remembered what had happened and I realized that it was natural for me to have my doubts, so I didn't say sorry. I just told her that I was just feeling very skeptical about what she was doing because in the past, I do remember her contacting me to apologize for her behavior only because she knew that I was giving away her inheritance, and she wanted me to save it up for her. So after something like that, I think I've earned the right to be suspicious of her. But she didn't seem fazed by what I said. She just told me that she was only here because the kids wanted to see us, and other than that, she didn't have much to say to us because we had already ruined our relationship to a stage of no return. She said that she had spoken to her husband and her in-laws and that everyone thinks that I'm very petty and that's all she cares about, that at least the people who really love her are on her side about this. I had a lot of things to say about her husband and in-laws, but I didn't. I kept my mouth shut because I really didn't want to get into a fight with her, especially when the kids were around. She just kept on instigating me, though. She told me that both my wife and I had failed her as parents, and at this point in her life, she had no interest in rebuilding our relationship anymore. She had tried, and she had apologized to me when she realized how hurt I had been that I had actually started giving her inheritance away. But afterward, she had realized that she already had her in-laws to count on, so she really didn't need us anymore, and she was much happier without us. Then she dropped a bomb and told me that this was one of the last times that she would be bringing her kids over to see us because she was trying to get them used to staying away from us. The only reason she had even given in today was because they were begging and throwing tantrums, so she had to allow them to at least meet us one last time under normal circumstances because things changed. After this, if we wanted to see them, we would have to contact them and arrange to meet somewhere else, and she wouldn't be dropping off the kids anymore. She would have either her husband or the nanny drop them off for play dates with us. She just didn't want to see us again. But she couldn't hold her kids back from doing that, and she didn't think that it would be fair either. But once they were old enough, she would tell them the truth about us and then allow them to decide if they wanted to see us on their own. I didn't know what to say to her, so I just stayed quiet. And a couple of minutes later, I went into the other room so I could play with my grandkids and distract myself from everything she had said about things changing. About an hour later, when she left with the kids, I told my wife everything, and we both ended up crying. It's not because all of a sudden we want to forgive our daughter or something, but just because things have come to a point where the situation is so bad that she doesn't even want to let the grandkids see us at home anymore. It's difficult to imagine meeting the grandkids in restaurants and coffee shops, of course. And on top of that, there's the fact that she won't be dropping them off. She'll get her husband or the nanny, which is also quite insulting. But at the end of the day, this is what was supposed to happen anyway. It was inevitable, and we just accepted it because it's not like we had a choice. In fact, we count ourselves lucky that at least she said that we could still see our grandkids, but I don't think that was for our benefit. And yes, in a few years, she might tell them things about us and they might choose not to see us anymore, but until then, we are going to make the most of the time that we get with them. If I know anything about kids, I know that they're curious, and I'm pretty sure that even if she tells them a bunch of crap about us right now, they're still going to try and get to the bottom of it, so I feel safe on that account. At least my grandkids are not going to blindly believe whatever their mother tells them about us. Anyway, the bottom line is that although my wife and I, both of us, have very conflicted feelings about what happened today and whatever she said, we are still going to be sticking to our guns. We don't have to forgive her for anything if we don't want to, and we're ready to accept the consequences of that as well. Of course, it's going to feel a little bad and weird to meet our grandkids less often and in such different circumstances, but at least we still get to see them. So that's one of the hopes in this whole situation, and that's what we're going to be holding on to. Apart from that, we're still planning on going on vacation next month, and I'm really glad that we are because I think after everything that has happened, we really need some distraction to let off some steam right now. As always, thank you for reading. Update 3. So it's been 4 weeks since my last update, and currently, my wife and I are on vacation in Greece. At first, we were planning for something cheaper nearby, but then when we realized that it had been ages since we had gone on a proper vacation, we just decided to go all out. We have been having a lot of fun. We have already spent 3 days here and we have 4 more to go. But, of course, the fact that we're having fun doesn't sit right with anybody from my daughter's new family. So a couple of hours ago, I received a call from my son-in-law. Unlike my daughter, I hadn't blocked his number because I know that he hardly ever contacts me anyway. And if he does, I was pretty sure that it would be for emergency purposes. And when he called, that's exactly what I thought, that maybe there had been some sort of medical emergency or even worse. So my wife and I decided to pick up immediately. But instead of my son-in-law on the other line, it was his parents, and they started asking questions about where we were, why we hadn't bothered to contact our daughter to see the grandkids for the past couple of weeks, and stuff like that. So I told them that we were in Greece, and we hadn't contacted my daughter because we had been busy. We were about to hang up after that since they clearly didn't have anything important to say. But then they started shaming and berating us for going away on vacation, especially when our family was going through such a rough patch. They said that we really had failed as parents since we clearly didn't care about anything she was going through because, apparently, she had been very upset for the past couple of weeks, and we hadn't even bothered to check up on her. They were about to say more, but I really didn't care, so I just hung up on them and then I blocked the number. It was extremely annoying because they kept pretending like my daughter was a victim in the situation. But as far as I'm concerned, she started the whole thing when she said she doesn't consider us our grandkids' grandparents anymore, and I still remember every hurtful thing that she said to me during the first fight that marked the beginning of all this. After that, why would any self-respecting person forgive her? Especially when she didn't even mean her apology. She had only contacted me to apologize because of the money that she was going to be losing out on. That's it, but it's part of all that. She's still the victim in the situation, and I'm still the bad guy. Well, then, so be it. I don't feel sorry about anything. And at this point, neither does my wife because throughout our lives, we have always tried to be good parents in spite of the most difficult circumstances. But if she doesn't care about that, then I think we are done here. She's not a child anymore. We don't owe her anything anymore, and neither does she, as she has made it very clear. Update 4. Hello. So we came back from our vacation a couple of days ago, and today, we decided to call our daughter and have a chat with her because we didn't like whatever was said to us while we were on vacation. Whatever is going on between us, it's personal, and I don't think that her in-laws are close enough to us to be commenting on anything even though they are close to her. Anyway, my wife called her up and told her that we didn't appreciate that phone call by her in-laws and also from now on, if she wants the grandkids to be able to see us, then she's gonna have to call us up. Come to our house, drop them off, and we can have it that way. But we are not abiding by her rules because at the end of the day she was the one who insulted us first and completely humiliated me. We've had enough of that, but we do care about our grandkids, which is why we are still ready to see them. She didn't say much. I thought that she was going to fight with us, but she just said that she was fine with it, but she would only be dropping the kids off if they asked to see us. Otherwise, if we asked to see them, we would have to make our own arrangements. That seemed fair enough. And we know that we are only keeping in touch for the sake of the grandkids because they really love me and my wife. And we love them too.